Yeah, no,
Not
those
even
things.
Try, but no.
Yeah, they're gonna have a
Those things,
felony.
they were never okay, but they're definitely not okay now. Okay, so something new I want to start with you guys, and I want you to set aside in your notebook, and I want to do this each class. It's something I do with clients, especially when they're studying different counseling techniques with me, is creating a symbol dictionary. So one of the things I do when I start with a client is I get a symbol of what's sort of going on with the client. And I use this symbol in my session with the client, and it guides me. So the other day I had this really interesting client, and this lady is phenomenal. You look at her, she's tall, she's statuesque, she's gorgeous, she's successful, she's made her own line of clothing and bags and things like that. And I immediately, when I start talking to her, pick up on self-hatred. This is gonna be a very common thing you're gonna have with clients. Clients that actually hate themselves, that don't really want to be alive, that don't really deserve or think that they deserve to be alive. So she starts talking and I'm like, so what's going on? And she's like, I don't want to fit in. And she keeps saying this over and over. I don't want to fit in. I don't want to be popular. I don't need to be the person that everybody likes. I just want, to have some success with my business and things like that. And I hear this over and over again. And this is what our profession is about. Our profession is about listening. Yes, you talk, but it's about listening. What is that client saying when she says, I don't want to fit in, I don't need to fit in? What is she really saying?
She wanna fit in. The opposite.
She might want to fit in. She doesn't fit in. She's not loved or not lovable. And
Not worthy.
she's not worthy, absolutely. And so I started asking her about this because it was something she kept saying over and over again. And it turns out that when she was little, she was a bully. She bullied some kids in school. So you want to listen for language that's very 0 to 100. So if I don't want to fit in, then this is fit in. When she says she's a bully, basically, I don't want to be a bully. What's the opposite of that?
I won't.
Victim.
Victim, absolutely. Or so this is like perpetrator. Remember I told you the other day, the perpetrator? This is an important triangle for you guys to know. Martyr, rescuer, or victim. So if she's the perpetrator, that means that she's a victim on the other side. And if her own existence, this was as elementary, was as a bully, that means that the only way to not fit in or the only way to exist is to not exist. Because then the person doesn't trust themselves to be in a community of people, because then the only way they'll know how to fit in is as a bully. So I'm listening to her and I'm like, wow, this person has self-hatred. There is like no love for self. She does not want to exist, basically. It turns out, and you're going to pick up on different themes, and this is why I want to start talking to you more about symbols so that you pick up on things. One of the things that she does with her clothing and her handbags and her shoes and all of her line that she does of her artistic wear is she uses sustainable materials. Okay, she doesn't add to the carbon footprint. She doesn't make a mess. She uses materials that are recyclable. What does that tell you about someone? If they're so emphatic about using materials that don't leave any print, any carbon footprint, that don't leave anything in the environment. That's a good thing. That's a really admirable thing. But there's a reason that this person is so on top of this part of her business. What does that say
She
symbolically?
wants to be, like how I saw it, since we know that she was bullied, bullies tend to leave a mark in other people.
Okay.
So she's trying to just go unnoticed.
Go
in the world.
unnoticed, exactly. This is a person who wants to go unnoticed, even in her materials. Someone who wants to go unnoticed is somebody who feels they don't deserve to exist. So I did what I did with you the other day about the breath. I said, can you please take a deep breath? Can you inhale and exhale, and which feels comfortable? And she's like, oh my God, the exhale. Of course. Because I'm not taking in any air. I don't belong. I don't deserve to take anything in. This is a self-hatred. So despite how beautiful she is, despite how tall, how statuesque, how successful her product should be, there is a level of self-hatred. Is this a person who's going to be able to be in relationship?
No.
Why?
Because she will become the victim, or she will become the bully. So either way, if she feels like in order for her to hold on a good relationship, she needs to become part of society, then she's going to become again a bully, and that's not going to work with the partner. Or if she stays like this, that doesn't want to be noticed, then obviously it's also going to bring problems with the partner, because maybe the partner wants to be noticed and go out there.
Okay, but would she even be able to find a relationship?
No,
You're talking
she
about if
wants to
she's
be
in one.
noticed.
She doesn't want to be noticed. Who will notice her? No sense of relationship. Yes.
Did you ever find out what turned her into a bully to begin with? Like, did she have any repressed anger that caused her to lash out or something?
Well, there's definitely repressed anger. There's definitely fear. This is somebody who's deeply hurt. This is someone who's deeply hurt. In my philosophy and the way that I work, I'm going to go to childhood
So,
immediately.
is this her way of trying to atone for being a bully?
It could be. It absolutely could be. Is it her way to atone for being a bully? It could be. This is the 0 to 100 that we talk about in here. So when we hear something like that, and where did I find out about a bully? I asked her about her childhood. I said, how were you? Describe you in childhood. Remember, in the model, I don't know if I have it here. In the model, we're going to find out about pregnancy, conception, of course, pregnancy, birth, and 0 to 7. So I asked her about child. In child, she was a bully. She was quiet. That's a contradiction.
Yeah.
You're already seeing I like thin crust. There's an incongruence. One sec. Okay, so when you find an incongruence in a client, you know that there's room for what? Improvement and change. Absolutely. You want to bring incongruences up to clients if they're ready, because there's going to be a place for change. How do I find out about conception? How do I find out about pregnancy? To validate the story. What's her story? What do we know now about her story, her narrative? What's her narrative?
I find it really interesting that she was a quiet kid and a bully at the same time, because normally we don't think of quiet kids
Exactly.
being bullies, we think of them as being victims. So I'm wondering, in what way did she bully another student?
Okay, well, we're not focusing at this particular moment on the bully. This is just one piece of information we got from the client, but you're absolutely right. There's an incongruence between bullying and being a quiet kid. So when you notice something like that, you know that there's something that doesn't make sense.
I think that there's something that she's not quite revealing, or some missing piece of the puzzle.
Yes, and we're going to keep asking questions. Our job is to ask questions because the client doesn't necessarily know. If the client knew, they wouldn't be with you. They wouldn't be coming to you. If we all knew our stuff, we would all be healed, or at least have awareness around them, and then decide if we want to integrate and hashtag do it differently. Okay? One second. So what are we going to go to find out about conception and pregnancy? What are we going to ask?
About the parents?
You're going to ask about the parents. What was the parent-parental relationship like? Because we know that inner conflict comes from parents. You want to start finding out what inner conflict those parents had that are now being reflected in that child. Maybe one parent was a bully and one parent was quiet, and this is why there's an incongruence. And it happened to be that she was never good enough for her father. Never. Her father wanted her to do ballet, speak French, play piano, and she couldn't do any of those. She was tone deaf. She had I don't know how many surgeries on her feet. She didn't speak the language. So we're already finding out that the inner conflict comes from the parents. So you ask about the parents. Just immediately, you go to that place. What do we ask about conception?
How was she conceived? You know, it's funny because I was thinking, oh, what if the mom got raped? And that's why she tends to be, you know, she doesn't want to be a victim, so she bullies others to kind of like.
But you're thinking right.
Yeah,
you're thinking right. It doesn't turn out that her mother's raped, but you're thinking along the lines. What's the story here?
The bit of information you read about the father, about having high expectations for her and being disappointed that she does not fulfill those expectations, makes me realize that perhaps that the type of student that she could have bullied was the one who sort of fits the mold of what her father wanted her to be.
It could be, but we're not focusing on the bully. We're getting past the bullying part because who is she really bullying? Herself.
That's what I mean. It's like bullying a mirror of what
Yes, it could be, but we're not going to be focused 100% on the bully. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the narrative of why she hates herself. Why does this client hate herself?
She feels like she's not enough.
There has to be something in the conception, in the pregnancy, in the childhood that is leading her to self-hatred, that she doesn't even want to exist in the world. She doesn't want to leave a breath. She doesn't want to take a breath. She doesn't want to leave a carbon footprint with her materials. What do we ask about conception and pregnancy?
Well, for conception, I'm believing maybe the father didn't want, probably wasn't ready for a child at the time, I'm not sure, and maybe the father was abusive verbally.
Okay, so we're having hypothesis.
Yeah.
Okay, we come up with hypothesis. Why do we come up with hypotheses? To ask what?
Question.
The right question. Okay, so we're already thinking that there's some level of abuse, there's some sort of something that maybe the parent doesn't want her. We're going to find out because we're going to ask her. Nellis.
So what if, you know, maybe the parents got divorced, what she was going through the pregnancy, what the mom was going through the pregnancy, so she felt unwanted. She felt like, oh, I don't deserve to be born because, you know, they don't want me.
Okay.
Once you're pregnant and your husband leaves you, obviously you're like, I'm feeling some type of way. I want nothing to do with him.
Okay, so again, another hypothesis. But what are we getting to in the hypothesis? That there's something that one parent doesn't want her, right? So she's feeling unwanted.
Maybe the father wanted a boy.
Maybe the father wanted a boy. Maybe the father didn't want her. What about the mother? Why only the father?
See, I know, because you already was talking about the father, so they just go jump on him.
Whenever you do anything wrong, so it's your fault.
So it turns out that when I asked her about
It's probably the mama
conception,
doesn't want the girl.
she says, I don't know anything except, so that's why you let the client talk, like Mr. Pachi always says, let them talk. Because they do know stuff, they've heard stuff, and all of it makes sense, all of it has a meaning. She says, I don't know anything except my parents were always fighting. Okay, so there's some inner conflict of fighting there. What is fighting? What emotion?
Anger.
Anger. And what's at the root of anger? What's below anger? What is anger really about? What emotion?
Fear.
Sadness.
Fear, hurt. Hurt, sadness, yes.
That's right, hurt.
So really, there's a hurt and sadness about something. We have to find out what that is. I asked her about the pregnancy. And she says, my mother wanted to go to school. My mother did not want to get pregnant. And when she got pregnant, and my mother loves me, she adores me, she's my #1 fan, she says to me, as I know, because I know this family, I've been working with them for a while, has nothing to do with what the parents reflect in the real life. It has to do with that infant conceived, what they learned about themselves in the process of conception, pregnancy, birth, and childhood. Okay? Her mother shows her love beyond belief. Her mother is her #1 fan. Her mother has given her all of her money so that she can make this business work. There's no way in hell you're going to tell this client that her mother doesn't love her, because that's not the issue. This is about lack of self-love. Her mother didn't want to get pregnant. The mother wanted to go to school to study. What is that?
I can't see that.
Castration. Someone got castrated. In self-hate cases, there is an issue of castration. What does it mean to get castrated? James.
Balls got
What does it physically mean to get
balls
castrated?
got cut off.
When your balls and your penis gets cut off. Uranus was castrated, and his balls fell into the ocean and created Venus. And Venus is desire, Venus is love, Venus is all of that. When a person has self-hatred, they feel there's a theme there of castration. Okay? If a man feels castrated, what is he unable to do to his partner?
Give her pleasure.
Penetrate her. He
Okay.
can give her pleasure in other ways, but he can't penetrate her. So,
Yeah,
what do you
problem,
think a person who cannot be penetrated, mom, or the mom was penetrated and didn't want to be, what is this client going to do about penetration? Symbol. I want you to start thinking in symbol. If you're not penetrated, you can't what? Second chakra. What happens in the second chakra?
She's basically wearing a chastity belt.
Chastity belt. You cannot create. You cannot birth anything. Can she birth a business?
No.
Can she birth a relationship? Can she birth love from herself? No. When people are self-hating, there is a line, a storyline of castration. And penetration is difficult. Penetration from the outside world to that person is all about the risk or the fear of getting penetrated. Therefore, repeating the story, I'm going to be birthing something that's unwanted. That's why she can't get her business off the ground. So I had to start talking to her about self-hatred. And she started screaming and crying. I know, I'm trying, I hate myself so much. It was very difficult. It was an extremely emotional session. It was tough. She was aware, but she didn't understand the why. She didn't understand why she had such a level of self-hatred for herself. So, when the person tells you, I don't want to fit in, I don't need to be the good girl, I don't need to be liked by anybody, basically I don't need to exist, because that's what she's saying. What's a better way? Remember, what we're trying to do with clients is reframe their negative thinking. How do you take someone that says, I don't want to fit in? This is their thought. This is what they're telling themselves. What can you do to give them a reframe of that? What can you do? What's the opposite of fitting in?
Fit in.
Okay, but fit in how? You can't tell this person, no, you have to fit in and you have to be all up in people's faces.
Give her a homework.
Okay, you're gonna give her homework. You're gonna give her homework, and I did give her homework, and I'll tell you in a minute. It's a symbol, so you'll write that in your symbol dictionary today. What is, instead of fitting in, what does this person maybe not want to do or
And now,
stand out? It is very different to tell them fit in rather than standing out. And so what I had her do is I go, can you commit to changing your vocabulary from I don't want to fit in to I don't want to stand out? Very different. Very, very different. And she said, yes, I could do that. So that was one of the main homeworks that I gave her to do, is to start practicing this new language. Remember, we're just giving clients small erections. We're just giving them small changes to do. That's a huge change for someone when you are constantly cognitively telling yourself, I don't want to fit in, I don't need to fit in, I don't need to exist. No, I just don't need to stand out. That means you exist, but maybe like people that work in the theater behind the scenes. They're working on Broadway, but they're dressed in black, moving the furniture around. It's very different than not fitting in. Not fitting in is castration. I don't need to be alive. I don't need to fit in at all. So, symbol number 1, a word called wabi, W-A-B-I. Anyone ever heard this word before? What does it mean in your language? Because you're laughing.
I kid you not, the coincidence is ridiculous, but I saw episode 4 of Shameless, season 10 last night,
Okay.
and one of the congressmen, like the girl, the black girl, she plays dominatrix, she like goes back to him, so he can call him to West Point, and he was, just call him Mr. Wabi. And all I heard was Wabi. And he's just getting whipped. So the first thing was like, have anybody ever heard of Wabi? And I was like, it just happened to happen.
Okay, and it was someone Japanese.
No.
You didn't just say Japanese?
No.
Was it
I
French?
just said it was
Oh.
a dominatrix. All he said he likes to be called
Mr. Wabi.
I was like, oh,
Okay.
goodness.
Wabi is a Japanese style of arranging flowers. And it means understated elegance. Anyone ever get a big, it's Valentine's Day coming, 24 flowers of roses, and it's huge, and it's delivered to your office, and it's like, oh, all the girls are like, oh, who sent it, all that stuff that we see on TV. That's not understated.
I love that part.
I pushed a
thank
button.
you. Thank you for saying that on TV.
However, there are a whole other way of arranging flowers. Now, if you have 24 roses on your desk, I know Mr. Patrick wouldn't be able to work because your desk is so small.
I know.
It would take up the whole computer thing.
Shots fired.
Sometimes people keep it at the front, or if you go to the hospital and you bring someone a big, bouquet of flowers, it takes up like where they have their food or their water pitcher or something like that. That's not understated. You want those to be seen. But there happens to be, in Japanese, an entire type of flower arrangement that's understated. That's just a few little leaves, one little flower. You've all seen it. You've all seen it. If you Google a wabi flower arrangement, you'll have seen it. Okay, Tanisha's going to do that for us. And so I explained this to her. I said, and this is where we give resources. Okay? Remember, part of your job is to just educate the client so that they leave with a different notion of what their whole problem is. That there's another way to see something. Your interventions are not huge, people. We are not sitting here giving these humongous interventions to people. We're giving them little nuggets so they can see things differently. This is where symbol comes in, and this is a symbol. An understated flower arrangement. Even if you don't know what it's called, even if you don't know, remember the name, James will never forget. We've all seen a flower arrangement that's understated, or a woman that's very elegant that just wears navy, or just wears black, or just wears simplicity. No jewelry, no big earrings, and there's a simple elegance about that. And so I started talking to her about that. I said, are you familiar with this word? She goes, I've heard this word before, but I don't know what it is. And I said, you know that it's this whole entire type of flower design. I said, how about we take you from instead of not fitting in to an understated elegance? And I gave her an example of a commercial. There's a commercial with Charlize, I can't remember if it's Charlize Theron or if it's Julia Roberts. And she's coming out of like this, I think it's like a pool or something, and she's like glittery and gold. And she's just, what is it? Charlize Theron, okay. And she's like gold, but it's a very subtle gold. It's not like this gaudy gold. She's just glimmering very lightly. And all the people are having their own conversations on the side. Everyone sees her, but people continue. There are people that walk into a room that are noticed and don't have to say a word. That's wabi, that's understated elegance. This person has that ability to take her not fitting in to not standing out because she's understated, and it's really not understated. It's really somebody who will stand out, but in an elegant way or in a diminished way. And it turned her whole frame of reference around. Her whole thought process of thinking about herself around. That was my intervention with her. And if I wanted to go a step further, I could have given her the assignment to make one of these flower arrangements. There's these companies that you can go and do an afternoon where you make flower arrangements, and you can find a wabi type of one. And I could have given her that assignment. Or I could have given her the assignment to get a glass container and put, some leaves and some sticks and just make an understated arrangement so that she has a mirror to what I'm asking her to do. Does this make sense? Do you see that the intervention with this person was so small, but it is enough to get her birthed? It is enough to get her out of this thing of being unwanted, and unwanted means being seen. And if you're seen, then you must be a bully. And if you're seen, you must leave a footprint. But rather, there's a way to be seen and unseen all at once. People just notice, like in that commercial, but they keep talking, and this person just took center stage of the room in a very elegant way.
So it's like saying she will then be seen from a different point of view.
Exactly, because she's trying to be seen, but not in a bully way. She's trying to be seen in her truth, which is the quiet. Her dad was the bully. Her mom was quiet, let her sort of be bullied. But her mother keeps supporting her. Her mother loves her. This is not an issue with her mother. The issue is with your client. It is an internal issue with your client. But you are going to get clients that hate themselves. Self-hatred is a thing that exists. And they will continue and perpetuate their story over and over and never get out and never accept any intervention and never accept any help and never accept any change because they're not even allowed to be here. They're not even allowed to be conceived. I never even got to the birth because the conception told me all of it. My parents were fighting all the time. My mother was in school. She didn't want to have a baby. She ended up not going to school and staying home and raising her kid. And she has a brother who is also my client. Very different story.
Oh yeah,
Very
you
different story.
raised in the same household, the same rules, the same structure. You're gonna
But the
be two
conception
opposites.
story is so different that you have two completely different people. We were 4. And all 4 of us have completely different conception stories. And that's the beauty of the astrology chart, is that you could see that. The relationship between the sun and the moon in your chart will tell you about the conception story of the person.
My moon is my birthday.
Aquarius?
No.
Aries?
Mhm.
Okay.
I like to bum it out and wear my pajamas all